In this video, I'm going to show you how to take two large men's shirts and turn them into one super wide shirt using this as my inspiration. Both of the shirts I used were a size large originally, and if you have similar sized shirts, they will probably line up better, but it isn't strictly necessary. There are two ways to do this refashion. The first is to sew the two shirts together with two seams in the front. The other is to make panels, which is what I'm going to do, because my second shirt is a refashioned shirt and the sleeves won't work with the first method. But whatever method you choose, the idea is the same, and I'll go over how to do both. So let's get started. I seam ripped the pockets from both shirts before starting. Mine are going to get in the way of the panels, so I removed them, but if you're making a shirt with a single seam, you may not need to. If you want to use the single seam method, which will give you the most width possible, cut the main shirt parallel to the button placket as close to the sleeve as possible. But since I'm going to add panels, I made my cuts in the middle of the shirt, which was about 6 inches from the center of the button placket. I also seam ripped the hem on both sides of the cuts because I'm going to use the original hem, and this will make it easier to sew. This is the second shirt, and as you can see, the sleeves have gathers and the shoulders have been taken in, so I can only use it to make panels. Whatever method you're using, make the first cut as close to the collar as possible, which was about 3 inches from the center of the placket on mine. And that's all you need if you're only sewing one seam, because you'll use the sleeves from this shirt and the placket from the other one. But since I'm making panels, I'm going to make the second cut as close to the sleeve as possible, which was about 7 inches from the center of the placket. To sew the shirt, line up the cut edges starting at the yoke with the right sides facing and pin them into place. And repeat on the other side. Then sew the seams together, starting at the hem. Unfold the hem, sew along the edge of the fabric, over the shoulder, and to the other hem, again making sure to unfold the hem before sewing. And back tack at the beginning and the end. Then repeat on the other side. If you're using the single seam method, you're done with this step, but if you're using panels, repeat the process to sew the second side of the panel to the side of the shirt. I had to unpick the hem of the second shirt as well to get the hems to line up, so you may have to do that too, depending on the length of your shirts and if you want to use the original hem. Finish the edges using whatever method you prefer. I decided to top stitch it down, which might not be the most secure way to finish a seam, but it does stay nice and flat. To top stitch, iron the seam allowance to one side, and then on the right side of the fabric, stitch the seam allowance down with a straight stitch, staying as close to the fold as possible. The best way to do this would probably be to finish the edges with a zigzag first and then top stitch them down, but I'm too lazy to do both. On men's shirts, many of the seams are top stitched because it keeps them flat and crisp, but I think it adds a nice decorative detail too. Plus, you don't have to iron your shirts once you're finished. You can keep the original hem or cut the shirt and make a new one if you prefer. For mine, I trimmed the insert panels to match the rest of the shirt. After drawing a line from one side to the other, I cut the panel. Then I rolled the hem of the panel until it matched the original hem. And repeated it with the others. Because some of mine were a little wonky, I ironed and pinned them in place before sewing. To sew the hems, start on the main shirt's hem seam, back tack, Then sew the hem of the panel to the other seam and back tack again. To detach the top part of the collar, open the seam that joins the collar to the stand and remove the collar. I used a seam ripper, but use whatever method works for you. Sew the two sides of the stand together, following the original sew lines as much as you can, and back tack at the beginning and end. Since the sleeves are now super long on this shirt, I'm going to shorten them by chopping them off and making a simple rolled hem at the bottom. Fold the shirt in half and line up the sleeves, making sure the cuffs are even. I removed the cuffs, but it isn't necessary. You can simply cut the sleeves. I marked mine just above the plackets, but you can make them whatever length you prefer. To make a rolled hem, fold the fabric over twice. Place it under the presser foot and sew as close to the edge as possible, rolling the fabric as you go until you reach the start, then continue over the seam and back tack. Repeat on the other sleeve, and that's it. We're done. And here's the result. First, I wanted to show you that the two panels added 12 inches to the width of the shirt. And if your original shirts are bigger, you can add a lot more. Just be aware that the shoulders will get wider as well. And here's what it looks like on. You can use this technique if you want to make a shirt wider because it's too small, if you like an oversized look, or if you want to make gathers and don't have enough fabric. I also wanted to mention that I think the panels would look better if they were a little closer to the placket. So if I were to do this project again, I'd try on the shirt to decide where to place the panels instead of just cutting the front in half. But overall, I'm still happy with the way it turned out. And I hope it inspires you to try your own refashioning project. Thanks for watching, and happy upcycling!